All right, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Misty Luminais. It is September 22nd, 2014. I am here with Pamela Owens for the Voicing in Action Project Community Researcher interviews. How are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
I'm doing well.
Good.
Okay, so we're going to start with something pretty broad. Can you tell me about your experience with the Voicing in Action Project?
Okay, my experience with the Voicing in Action Project, I had an opportunity to be a part of research that's a part of the history of the city of East Cleveland. And I wanted to become a part of the Voicing in Action Project because I wanted to be able to interview people within the community, find out a bit about their history, additional history about the city of East Cleveland, and be able to document people's views and perceptions about the city of East Cleveland from the inside out. Okay. My experience with the Voicing in Action Project was very pleasant and enjoyable. We received training before we started. We also had monthly meetings. We had additional educational training as well. So this helped. We talked about different ways to interview people, different approaches, how to introduce ourselves to the community to be able to capture the interviews that we were seeking.
And do you feel like that was effective?
Yes, I believe so. I met many people that were really excited when they were approached. I met some people who were a little hesitant, but once we talked about what the project was about, they started asking questions and wanted a little more information, and one or two decided to join the project.
Okay. How has your perception of the community changed due to your involvement with the project?
My perception has changed well, not greatly, because I've always known people who were active within the community. However, my perception of people not being willing, those who were not active, changing their minds, I was not a witness to it, but since the project has started, I have seen people's attitudes change towards the city. For me, in the city of East Cleveland, you have the people who feel that it's the greatest city in the world, and then you have some who feel like, oh, it's not the best city in the world, and that depends upon when a person actually entered the city of East Cleveland. The people who thought the city was not the greatest place in the world, I've seen their perceptions change because they've encountered other people who had a more positive attitude.
And where did you see that happen?
Just in interacting, I saw it at meetings. There were people where I would attend community meetings and you would see the same faces. Since we've started the project, more information has gotten out. The city has been more diligent about letting people know about community meetings as well. So now we're seeing new faces that have lived in the city and also new faces that have moved to the city, and they're becoming participants within the city as it revitalizes itself.
And what kind of meeting?
Well, there is an organization called NOAA, Northeast Ohio Alliance for Hope. They have had community meetings. The first meeting, which really got me truly involved, was the effort to close the East Cleveland Post Office. And there was a meeting over at the Martin Luther King Center, and I was not aware of NOAA myself, but I happened to attend that meeting, and that's where I had the opportunity to see a group of people actually doing things to help the city, help keep the post office at that particular time. And that's when I joined that group. I joined NOAA, and in working through NOAA, I had the opportunity to meet other people who had an interest in the community and had an interest in improving the city of East Cleveland. Okay, a second location would be at the East Cleveland Public Library, where they have several types of meetings, the Democratic Club meetings, other civic meetings, and you have the opportunity to join these particular groups, sit in and hear what their conversations are about the city, as well as other communities in Northeast Ohio.
So do you feel like this project has helped you become more involved in the community?
Absolutely, it has. I have been a resident of the city for over 35 years, and most of my time was spent as a young professional working when I arrived here. Well, I shouldn't say when I arrived, but when I really established myself. So as a young person, you're really more concerned about establishing yourself, your home, your professional career. And I had an opportunity to, what I say, get off my sofa and participate with what was really going on in the city. So in doing so, I joined the Voice in Action project, and it sent me out into the community. My choice, we were free to do so, and to talk with the people that I wanted to talk with and interview the people that I wanted to interview. And you get to hear more perceptions, ideas, opinions about what the city should be doing. And it gives you the opportunity to research and investigate what's going on and what people perceive as what's going to be good for the city and what's not working in the city. So it put me out there to really investigate, okay, what organization do I want to be a part of, and how am I going to be able to be beneficial to that particular organization, and how can I benefit the city as well.
And was there any particular interview where before you interviewed someone or before you saw someone's interview that you had one perception of them and then afterwards it changed?
I would have to think about that. Can we go back to that question?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Okay, so what skills have you learned?
I am a very reserved person, and I believe having to go out, select my own interviewees, made me more assertive in my approach in working with people or talking with people. Had to use some persuasion in some occasions, nothing strong arm, but it made me be more outgoing than what I usually am with strangers. People that I know, I'm more outgoing, but those that I don't know, I have to break the ice for myself more so than for them in order to capture their attention and get the interview that I would like to have. Other skills, working the camera. I am familiar with cameras, just socially. My family loves cameras, be they film, digital, video, but it helped me learn more so how to set up a camera, make sure the mics are straight, make the interviewee comfortable, because you get a better interview when people are comfortable and feel that you're open to what they have to say, not be judgmental or critical of what they're saying when they're giving their interview, and just taking the time to do whatever's needed to get the best interview possible for the project.
And how were you able to learn to be more open and less judgmental?
For me, it was a process of learning, and I know this, but I had to put it in practice, learning to accept that people's beliefs are different than yours. And just because one person believes one way and you believe another way, it does not mean either opinion or is wrong or right. Okay, it's just a different approach to life.
And you feel like over the course of your interviews you were able to practice that more?
Yes, I do.
And what about the ways that you think about things? Do you feel like the monthly meetings or like the other training that you've had, do you feel like that's trained you in different analytical skills?
Yes, I do. With the monthly meetings especially, we had a group of people. We were not all on the same page, and we shouldn't be, okay, how we see life. And we had meetings where everyone was able to and encouraged to voice their opinion about whatever the subject or theme was for that particular meeting. And it allowed me to hear what they had to say, why they believed what they believed, and to be open to their summation of what should happen.
Awesome. So how do you prepare for interviews?
I go over the questions that have been presented to us to use, and mine was probing. I need to probe more. I'm a private person, and I find that I found myself not asking enough questions because in my mind, I'm thinking I'm asking too many questions, but you have to ask the additional questions in order to really get the really good interviews. So I practice ways of how to encourage someone to give me more information about what they've already stated. And actually, I'll even practice in a mirror about, okay, well, how do you really feel about this? Those sorts of things. And the team here gave us critiques on our interviews, and I go over those particular notes as well so that I can, okay, where did I fall short, or how could I do this better at my next interview?
And can you give me some examples of probing questions?
Proofing questions?
Probing questions.
Probing questions. Okay, what do you mean by a probing question? Okay, give me a little more detail on what you mean by a probing question. I'm practicing that on you. Okay, so, and once you have this probing question answered, can you tell me if you could do this a different way, how would you do it? Something that would let that person know, okay, you've answered my question, but you can give me more if there's more for you to give to me. Can you elaborate on that? Can you give me more details? How did you feel about this particular situation when you happened? More questions to get them to talk a little bit more about whatever they were experiencing at that time during the interview.
Mm-hmm. And do you do any research about the person before? Like, do you think, if it's someone you know, mm-hmm. do you think about how the questions might apply to them? Or if it's someone you don't know, do you do any research?
Okay, now, did not do a lot of additional research, and I really did not interview anyone that I knew. These were all strangers to me. Mm-hmm. You know, they are known names in the city, but I had no real relationship with them whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And one of the reasons why, let me say this, I didn't do research because I did not want the research to alter what I would say or how I would perceive that person when they gave me the interview. So I just wanted them to come open to me, and I wanted to be open to them.
And do you take notes during interviews?
That's kind of hard. I try to, mm-hmm. Okay, but what I've done with the cards, well, not with the cards, with the questions that were given, I have put them on index cards, and that's for me to make sure that I have covered all the questions. And I'm talking and looking at the index cards and also trying to make sure that I'm paying attention to what the interviewee is saying so that I can ask the next question within the original question that I've asked in order to do the probing. So not a lot, but I have done notes when I was working with someone else. And the gentleman was giving a great interview, and the interviewer was into it, and I was thinking of questions, and I was able to write down notes and pass them on. So in a situation like that, yes, I'm able to make notes and ask additional questions. But I'm not actually doing the interview. Okay.
So you've worked by yourself and you've worked in teams. Can you talk about how those are different?
As a team, well, individually, there's definitely more responsibility. You're concerned about the camera. You want to make sure everything is going well. You want to make sure that the audio is okay. Um, with the team, and for me, it's less writing. I'm focusing on making sure that I touch everything that needs to be covered in the interview. As a team, you have the opportunity of having a camera person that's making sure that the camera and the audio is correct. And that's me doing the interview. I'm able to start talking with my interviewee and beginning the process of making them feel comfortable, because once they arrive, they're a little anxious about what's going to happen. And on the other side of that, if I'm working with someone and I'm the camera person or whatever else that they may have me doing, I, again, have the opportunity to listen to that interview, write down questions that I would like for someone to ask to probe, and pass that information on. And if the interviewer is able to do it, they do so, and it makes a pretty good team. So I would probably suggest, if I do other interviews, and it was my choice because we could always call on someone, I would probably do more teamwork than individual work. And I think I chose individual because I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. Okay, now that I know that I can, then it's the next step is to be able to work with a team, and I see the benefits of working as a team.
Mm-hmm. And did you use the bio sheet?
A couple of times I did, but most people did not want to use the bio sheet. They just like the audio video.
And did you get any sense of why?
I feel that they felt that it was just too personal. They didn't want to go but so far.
Were you able to discuss the issues on the bio sheet with them on camera?
Yes. What I did with one interview was just actually read from the bio sheet. You're like, okay, tell me about your family history, blah, 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 blah. And what about your family, your husband, your spouse? And when you get past them personally, that's when they pull back. So it's like, okay, I've agreed, but my family didn't agree to do this interview, so let's just focus on me.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how does the setting of the interview impact the work?
The setting is important because you want your interviewee to be as comfortable as possible. So if they're in an environment where they're comfortable, they're going to be more relaxed, and that place would be their home, their office. They're more relaxed there as opposed to going into an environment that they're not familiar with. So the setting, I feel if it's a comfortable atmosphere, you're going to get a better interview, unless you personally know that person and they're coming to your home. And I did a couple of interviews from my home. And let's see, let me backtrack. I think there was one person I did really know that came to my home, but it was a very short interview. And they were comfortable with doing it. But the others that I did from my home, I did not know these people. So it's still, they gave me a good interview, but I don't think it was going to be as good as it could have been if I was in their home or in their office.
Mm. Mm. Are you comfortable here?
Yes, but I've been here before. It's okay.
And what about technical challenges with setting?
Lighting. Lighting was the challenge. Okay, and in my home, it was a little dark. You could see it, but additional lighting would have helped the interviews that I did there.
Mm-hmm. So have you had a chance to think about interviews that made you change your perceptions of people?
Let's see. Thinking about people. They did not change my perception. The one interview that I had, and I'm just trying to think, because they were all good interviews to me.
Or that surprised you about someone? You
So
learned
surprised,
something. And
something
you don't
new.
have to use names.
Okay, and I'm really thinking, and I was about to. Nothing changed, it just gave me more insight. That would be a better word for me, more insight about the people that I interviewed because I didn't know very much about them in the first place.
So I know for me there was one particular political figure that presents himself one way in public, and like his interview made me really think of him differently.
Okay.
That's why I'm kind of pushing on that question.
Okay.
So the next question is, what has been the most surprising and or challenging aspect of the work?
Surprising or challenging? Most challenging for me has been getting people to say yes to the interviews and the scheduling not adding up. And it's like, oh, I have this interview, they signed this sheet, la la la. Okay, and we just could not match up the schedules. I have an interview now that I want to do, and I have a promise of this interview. It's an important one for me. We've already interviewed the brother. I want to interview the other brother, two brothers that moved in that are very successful in and outside the community of East Cleveland. However, it's timing. It's timing. Okay, so scheduling is very important, and being able to get the interview that you really want, that you really think is going to be good, and being able to schedule it and being able to do it. That's been the most challenging for me.
And do you feel like you could have been better prepared for that?
Yeah, not really, because you just don't know. My schedule has changed, and when I initially started out, I did not, or I had far more freedom of scheduling. Now that has changed, and it limits me as far as when I can interview as well. So people's schedules change, people's lives change. So you have to really go with the flow and accept that, you know, that will be a challenge is scheduling. So no, there's no way that you can do it, because no way I could have predicted that I would be working later in the evening, okay, and by that time people are either at home, don't want to do it, or on their way to another meeting. So that's been the biggest one, and disappointment as well.
And how have you gotten people to say yes to interviews?
Generally, I will be talking with people and not necessarily talking about VNA. However, when I discover that they've been a resident of the city, I just let them know, hey, you know, we are doing something here, and you look like you would be a good candidate. You seem interested in the city, and I would like to present this particular project with you, to you, and would you like to participate? So, it's short spiel, but just enough to get their attention and say, would you please consider doing so?
And did you find people generally responded positively?
Yes, they do. I only had one bona fide cancellation, and I was disappointed with that because had really expected, I'd gotten up early to do it, and they were just like a no-show disappearance situation. But it's nothing you can do, but that comes with the territory.
So how did what you actually do differ from what you thought you would be doing?
It wasn't, I'll be honest with you. I have done some interviews in the past, and it was everything that I expected it to be. I was just happy that it was about an interview about the city that I live in and something that I could be a part of.
And how did you come to the program?
I came to the program while volunteering at NOAA, and Dr. Rhonda happened to come through, and she was speaking of a project that she was going to start, And I said, hey, that sounds interesting. That sounds like something I would like to be a part of. May I join you? And she said, oh, sure, you know. So once I heard about it, I made contact, and here I am. Mm-hmm.
So would you encourage others to participate? And if so, what advice do you have for future community researchers?
Absolutely. I would definitely encourage others to participate, especially young adults and teens. And I would like for them to participate even more so because they're developing their perception of this city and any other city that they may live in the future. What was the other part of the question?
What advice do you have?
What advice would I have for them? To prepare to go out and ask questions. I don't think enough questions are asked many times, and that includes myself. Be prepared to learn new things, working cameras, talking with people, going to places you wouldn't ordinarily go, listening to new ideas, different opinions, and just be out there and enjoy yourself while you're doing it.
So what is a new thing that you learned?
Something new. Okay, other than going out. I have to think about those things because I wasn't approaching it in that way. I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I learned many new things. The formality of doing research. The consent form, very important. If you don't learn anything else, learn how important that consent form is. Informed consent. And you be able to explain it to people. And being able to do that, you definitely can make them feel comfortable. They don't feel vulnerable. So that's that part about it. Because I always thought you could just do an interview, no big deal, but that's very important.
And did you feel like, you had mentioned earlier that you tend to be a reserved person. Did you feel like going to new places, like going to people's homes, did that open your eyes more?
It made me more comfortable. Okay, I always try to do a little bit more, even though I'm reserved. And I like doing new things, which brought me here. Okay, but yes, it made me feel more at ease when I'm not in familiar places. So, and that took a little bit, but it'll keep me going as well because it's like, okay, yeah, do I want to? Yes, I will because I've already done it, you know.
So we're going to shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
How do you define social justice?
Oh, and that's the question that started out with me and Dr. Rhonda that day when I met her. How do I define social justice? Social justice, to me, is the government, be it city, state, or local, being fair with their approach about whatever they're implementing for the community. You can't do one thing for one community and do the opposite for another community. When it comes to the news media, social justice is presenting every community as a decent and respectable community and just not certain communities because of their economic standing.
So you talk about the government and you talked about the media. Are there other institutions or other situations where social justice might be applied?
Yes, but that was were the two that just popped in the top of my head because those two things for me stood out the most about the city of East Cleveland. Perception.
So can you talk a little bit about how that stood out in East Cleveland?
Local governments in the past, state, were unwilling to work with the city of East Cleveland for large projects, redevelopment. The news media projected East Cleveland, it still does from time to time, as the worst place you could ever live, and that affects not only the adults but the children. I ran into some children recently, and, well, especially one little fella, and he was just totally down. You know, someone told me, you know, I live in this particular city and it's the worst place that you can live. Well, why would this child think that way, you know? And that's because this is what has been projected. And many times the comments that he was hearing this particular statement from were people who have never lived or walked in the city of East Cleveland proper, yet they have this perception, and the perception comes from the news, and the news projects that out, and people repeat it, and some people believe it, and it affects others. So that's why I came up with those two things.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have like a broader sense of what social justice would be then? Like, not talking about particular institutions, but like, if we were aiming for social justice, what would we be aiming for?
I would have to think about that. Okay. Couldn't do it off the top of my head.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Has your definition of social justice changed due to this project?
No, it has not. In some instances, it confirmed, but I can see how things can be improved, definitely,
Mm-hmm.
by being involved.
So do you feel like, let me see if I'm hearing you right.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like your ideas about social justice have grown to include taking action as opposed to just like what the idea of what social justice is?
Mm-hmm. Well, you have to take action, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And did you feel like that prior to the project?
Yes, but I wasn't practicing it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now it made me involved.
Okay.
And to see, I can see how it can work, and also learn what I can do to help it along.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think this kind of project is important or useful for social justice work?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
My experience has been with this particular project, the Social Justice Institute helped gathering people together, okay, giving people an opportunity, groups of people, not just one or two, groups of people, organizations, giving them the opportunity to express their concerns and to express their ideas on what needs to be done in a particular area or city. And not only express it, you know, some people think further beyond the complaint and say, okay, I have a resolution for it. What can we do to make a difference, make a change, and make things more socially fair?
So you said you were talking about when groups did that. What about the individual oral life narratives? Do you feel like that's useful?
Yes, I would actually like to see every student do it. I really would, because I don't know for certain if all students are active, but well, that was not a good statement. Far as what subject would it fall up under? History, political science. I would like to see every student do this because that helps them form. They already have an opinion, but it helps them form an even deeper research and a better opinion of what's actually going on around them. So that's what I see. You can hear things, rumor mill, yada yada, but once you're out there in the trenches and you're talking to people and forming new ideas, that's something I would like to see, because it gives you an opportunity really to see what's going on, who's saying what, and not I heard someone say it. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I hope I'm answering your question.
That's fine.
Okay.
So do you feel like this project then has been more impactful for the researchers than the people that were interviewed?
Can I say that? Because we didn't go back and ask that question to the interviewee. Okay, so I know it has impacted me, but we really don't know how they felt after they actually did the interview. So that would be something we could research.
Okay. So do you feel more empowered?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
How so?
First of all, I'm in touch with organizations that are actively trying to make change. I can see firsthand within these organizations of people where it was a few, now there are more, and they're gathering. I can see within the city the approach to making things better and knowing that it's not going to happen overnight, but I do see some movement. I just see change.
And how does that make you feel more powered, like more empowered?
Not working alone, working as a team, working as a group, working as a community, as opposed to one person trying to do it all.
So, what impact do you think this has had on the participants in the community?
I haven't seen it visually yet, and I think that's to come after we do whatever else we're going to do.
Did you attend any of the NOAA SJI meetings at the library?
I was only able to stop in because I was working during that time, so I was not able to see the full impact of that.
Okay. And did you do an interview? Like, were you an interviewee?
No, I wasn't.
Okay.
No.
Do you feel like that would have changed your perspective?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I really don't. But because I think being the interviewer, you hear and see more than just being the interviewee. So I don't think that it would have changed my perspective. I just think doing the interview within, being the interviewer gave me more information about what's going on. So, no, that wouldn't have made a difference.
And why did you not do an interview?
Probably timing. That would be the only thing. Now, we did little mini interviews during our meetings, okay, and I was giving my true feelings there, but as far as a long interview, no. So.
So how would you change or improve the project?
I would not change anything. I enjoyed the meetings. The meetings were very important. They were very insightful. Critiques, They were good. Maybe do a few more critiques to make sure we stay on track. Mhm.
And the interviews that you did since I started, did you always get email critiques about them?
Yes, I did. Mhm.
So it was the ones between when you started interviewing and when I came on board that you felt like you weren't getting feedback on?
Oh no, you were just asking just in general.
Yeah.
No, I received critiques. It's just that maybe I'm saying perhaps after each critique, okay, we might want to do a little more, but
Okay, so more one-on-one critiques?
right,
Like, so sitting down with your film and watching it?
right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Making sure we're hitting the mark.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And that's just for me. Someone else may want less critiques.
And did you feel like you knew what you were doing well?
In my mind, yes, but it doesn't necessarily mean so. That could be ego. Okay. No, it's always room for improvement. So that's why I like critiques, you know. And then at one point, you're like, okay, you don't need any more. Get out of here. Then you know you're on track.
Mm-hmm. And how about the stipend system?
Oh, that was fine. Mm-hmm.
You felt like you had a clear idea of what you were getting a stipend for?
Yes, absolutely.
And how about the ongoing training?
Love it. Mm-hmm.
So you didn't find it a problem to keep the number of cracks you needed?
Say that again.
The CRECs?
Mm-hmm. No, because the office was open to us. You email at any given time, make a telephone call. Where am I? What do I need to do? So no, and the information was coming out continuously.
What was your favorite training?
The Lawless.
Mary Ellen Wallace?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Which one was that?
I think was that in April? I think.
Last April?
Okay, maybe it wasn't last April. Recently, though. Or it could have been in the fall. I mean, time is going by, click, click, click. But there was one here on campus. And it did review the informed consent form.
Mm-hmm.
And they discussed what was happening within the hospital systems as well as, you know, with other entities and institutions. But I can't give it a name right now, but I just remember being there. Mm-hmm.
And did you get a chance to go to the Henrietta Lacks?
No, I did not.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. But I was familiar with it and found that, was that the one? Maybe that was the one because they discussed that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I...
well, the one we did on campus, we discussed the Henrietta Lacks, but the actual CREC for that was on Metro's campus.
Okay. All right. I would have to look at my information from the meeting, but I just remember the one here the most.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, didn't remember it by name. I just remembered.
And as far as the timing of the meetings,
Mm-hmm.
and like, so after traditional work hours, I know that sometimes you struggled with making those hours.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like you were still getting enough contact with the group?
Yes, I do, because the emails were very helpful, plus the minutes were sent as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that was helpful, very helpful. And there was ongoing contact, updates.
And did you feel like you were able to make enough of the Saturday events?
Initially, I was.
Okay, is there anything else you would like to add?
No, not at this time.
No.
No.
So if we do this project in another community, would you be willing to serve as a mentor?
Yes. If I was called on, yes, I would.
Would that have been helpful for you?
Actually, I felt as if you and Shelley worked as mentors towards us. So.
Well, honestly, I was learning the camera actually after you guys learned the camera, so.
Shh, we won't tell. But, you know, that's the technical part. Okay, but other things, you were right there for us.
Well, we really enjoyed having you as part of the project. So
Thank you.
I want to thank you for being part of the project, and thank you for doing this interview.
Thank you very much for inviting me and for allowing me to be a part of the project. I really appreciate it and I enjoyed it.